Minister, I too want to echo the kind of sentiment about the programme for admitting Afghanis that have relatives here. I think it's a good initiative, and Ireland has always played a good role in humanitarian solidarity across the world. You know, there's other facts that I would disagree with, fundamentally disagree with you, but you know, Irish people across the world have always put a hand out to those that are in need, and that's it's a very kind of a proud tradition that we have, and that's very, very good. And first of all, Minister, I'd like, you know, the circumstances in Afghanistan are truly, truly tragic, but it's been a tragedy that has been made by occupation over the last 20 years, and we have to understand what was the last 20 years all about. What was that all about? Why were the United States in Afghanistan in the first place? Afghanistan had nothing got to do with the events in New York in 2011. Absolutely nothing got to do. Yet, over 75,000 people, civilians, were killed in Afghanistan. And ironically, most of them were women and children. And then that followed the absolute catastrophe of what happened in Iraq through the occupation of Iraq. So these circumstances, the Americans have, you know, putting themselves as the liberator. They're not the liberator, they're the oppressor. And they're the oppressor that have left Afghanistan in a pretty terrible state. And the amount of money that was spent is astronomical, absolutely astronomical. And after all that money, and after all that occupation, and all that death and destruction, whether it was Afghani civilians, combatants, American soldiers, NATO soldiers, you know, after all that, as soon as the Americans said they were leaving, everything fell apart. Everything fell apart. The Afghani army fell apart after literally 2 or 3 weeks. So what does that say about kind of Western imperialism and American imperialism? And I know there's a veneer that is kind of, there's a narrative that this was about protecting women's rights. But that's, I mean, the hypocrisy is incredible, really. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia. Who was the biggest economical contributor to Saudi Arabia? The United States. Nobody said anything about that. You know, what's women's rights in Saudi Arabia? It's terrible. But America, you know, deals with Saudi Arabia, no problem. So there's incredible hypocrisy around here. And the Taliban is, in fact, in some ways, the creation of the United States. I mean, before, in 1979 to 1989, the Mujahideen were supplied by arms by the United States. That killed thousands of people. So this is the bitter, bitter fruit of imperialism and the bitter fruit of occupation. And the Taliban are no friends of the Afghani people. Absolutely, they're fanatics, reactionary fanatics. And eventually, the Afghani people will turn against them. You know, they're seen in some guises because the state was so corrupt. So corrupt, the president went where, I think, Qatar, because he knew the game was up. So all this is the bitter fruit of adventurism, of imperialism. And we should have nothing got to do with it. But we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Afghani people here and Afghanistan. Thank you.